I know I've said this before, but I really love the episodes where it is like a hero academia. The fact that they're actually doing an internship is really interesting to me. But with that said, hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another one of our weekly My Hero Academia Season 5 discussion videos. Today we're here to talk all about episode 15, one thing at a time. But before we get into the video proper, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet, to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AnyTube know that you're here. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dig into this week's episode, shall we? So this week we kick things off with the whole Liberation Army thing. The more and more that we get into this, the more and more I am intrigued but very confused. I like not knowing. I've seen so many people get angry with this season of My Hero. So many like self-righteous manga fans being so upset, like, oh, we're wasting time not getting into the Liberation Army. And I'm like, I like not knowing. I like not knowing what's gonna happen yet. It leaves intrigue. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they're planning, but I'm excited to find out. And if you just tell me everything right away, it takes all the mystique away from it. So of course I like not knowing. It's fun to speculate. It's fun to wonder what the hell's going on. And then once it's actually revealed, it'll be really cool. And you know they'll spend some time explaining, because that's what villains do. Villains explain themselves so that the heroes have time to react. That is not new. But I'm very curious. I'm very excited. The more time we spend with Hawks in this like abode with the Liberation Army, it's just very intriguing and it makes me want to know more. Hawks in particular, just willing to walk this very dangerous tightrope, I find super interesting. Hawks is a character I've always found really interesting. I mean, you know, he's a husbando, so like there's that. But it goes beyond that. Like Hawks is one of those heroes who will sort of straddle the line between good and bad. Like he's doing things that like are pretty morally gray, right? We know he did something to Genist. We don't know what yet, but something. And we know that he is essentially playing both sides. Like he is unfortunately sort of pulling the wool over the eyes of the hero society, but at the end of the day, Hawks is still a hero. Like he is still doing this for the good of humanity and for the good of society. He is trying to take down the Liberation Army from within. And we know how much he clearly cares about the upcoming heroes, how much he cares about the students. And we see him putting himself on the line so that nobody else has to. And he's thinking it through, right? Like he's being very coy. He's using his feathers to sort of hear what other people are saying, which is a cool idea for his quirk. The idea that if he leaves a feather behind, he can feel the vibrations of the room that the feather's in, which actually which his wings interpret as sound. Sorry, my brain went numb there, and my dog's barking. Apologies, here I am supposed to be a professional, and, you know, I have to deal with that. But, so, Hawks. The fact that his feathers can actually, or his wings can interpret what the vibrations of feathers left behind can feel, thereby translating that into sound that he can hear, is really cool. I think that's a fun addition. It also makes Hawks kind of OP, but he's already been kind of OP, so that's fine. And he basically leaves behind, again, as we saw last week, the book that Endeavor needs to, well, not last week, the week prior, the book that Endeavor needs to sort of understand the scope of what the Liberation Army is planning, and this is also where he figures out what the Commission is up to. Endeavor figures out that Hawks and the Commission are basically setting it up so that the students will be doing their whole like internship, their work study alongside the heroes, so that just in case things go south with this Liberation Army, just in case Hero Society collapses, then at least the students, the upcoming new generation of heroes, actually have time to train with these heroes before things go south. Like, to actually have some battle practice. Maybe they can even help. It's dangerous because it puts the students in a much, much, much more precarious situation where they might actually be going toe-to-toe with the League of Villains. And yeah, sure, we've seen Class 1A do this, but even then, it's not like they've had an easy time. And every time Class 1A has gone up against the League of Villains, it has always been that they skate by the skin of their teeth. Like, it is always, always close. And it's not even close as in, like, oh yeah, they're evenly matched. It's more like, no, Shigaraki would whoop some ass if you felt like it. It's always dangerous. So the idea that you're putting all these students into close proximity to straight up supervillains is scary. But Hawks actually seems to have quite a bit of faith in the students, not only like Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo, but just generally, and even going beyond Class 1A, like Class 1B, the other hero schools, like all of them. And that's seemingly thanks to Tokoyami, which I really like, because we don't really get much of Tokoyami and Hawks right now, but we do get to acknowledge that Hawks and Tokoyami actually have a pre-established dynamic. And it's cool when he's talking about Tokoyami, you see Tokoyami like turn around as though he heard him, you know, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. I like that. I want to see more of the Hawks and Tokoyami dynamic. I don't know if we will. I certainly hope so, but I really really enjoyed that this week. However, the internships themselves are actually like really, really interesting. I said at the beginning of the video that I find anytime that the show actually dives into the academia of My Hero, I find really fun. Again, one of the reasons that we get into the show, when somebody pitches you My Hero Academia, it's about superheroes that are training and like going to a school to learn how to be superheroes. It's Sky High, but animated. It usually catches people and brings them in, right? Because that's such a fun idea. But for the most part, My Hero actually, like a lot of the story of My Hero doesn't actually focus heavily on learning how to be a hero. It's mostly about these young students who are kind of thrust into this position where they need to save the world. It's actually quite similar to things like Naruto or Bleach, right? I mean, it is a shonen series, that's to be expected, but it has more in common with other shonen series than it does with, you know, actually like learning to be superheroes. It has more in common with shonen stuff than, say, Sky High. You know what I mean? But sometimes it does go Sky High. Sometimes it does go in Incredibles, right? And it dives into what it means to be a hero, right? Like learning how to be a hero. And I like that. I like when it does that. And this is one of the weeks where it does. We see the Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki, who anytime I am referring to them from now on, I'm just going to call the Three Musketeers. But we see the Musketeers, and they are in front of Endeavor, who asks them what they want to do, right? Like, he asks them, what is your goal during this work study? And they each have a different answer. Deku wants to utilize his quirks to the fullest, and Endeavor basically tells him just to focus on Air Force instead. Because Deku basically says that if Deku goes full nerdy, because of course he does, it's Deku, and he explains that he really wants to be using his quirks to the fullest of their abilities. He wants to be able to swap between different modes without having to think about it, right? He wants to swap between full cowling, shoot style, Air Force, maybe even Black Whip, all without really having to think about it. And Endeavor does applaud that, like, because Endeavor will later say, like, that's a good mindset, that's a good idea, but as an example, look at the guy driving down there, and he points to the driver, and this is a really good example of what it is to be a hero, right? Where he points to the guy driving, and the guy driving is actually multitasking, right? He has his hands on the wheel, feet on the gas and brake. He's looking, like, paying attention to the road. He's like yawning. He's thinking about other things while doing all these different things. And it seems second nature, right? And for some people, it's like, yeah, he's driving, like, whatever. But you have to learn how to do those things individually first, and then you can do them all in succession without really having to think about it. And that's what he's trying to teach Deku right now, and what he's really trying to teach Todoroki and Bakugo as well. And what we'll find out is basically Endeavor's mantra, what Endeavor feels the way to go beyond even is small, steady improvements, like small increments of just adding more and more quirk, more and more of your particular style into your fighting abilities, right? Like adding little things here and there, not even fighting, just like the way you save people, the way you rescue, like the way you control and the way you fight. You add little things here and there that actually improve on your quirk and actually improve your ability to be a hero. It's really, really interesting. And I do think that it makes sense for Endeavor to tell Deku to specifically focus on Air Force because of that. Because we find out that from Deku that Air Force takes a lot more concentration than Full Cowling or Shoot Style, because it actually takes about 20% more power, or 20% of his power, as opposed to his current stuff, which is about maybe like 15 to 10. So because Air Force just pushes him that little bit over, it costs him a little bit more concentration. So Endeavor just tells him to focus on Air Force for now before even worrying about Black Whip or anything like that. Because if he can focus on that and then do it without having to think about it, that will make things much easier. Like just to have slow, steady build-up, slow, steady improvements, and that's how Deku's going to become an even better hero. And as we know, by the end of the series, will become the number one hero because Deku told us that at the beginning of the series. But Bakugo shows up, and Bakugo's thing is that he wants to learn what he can't do. He knows that strength alone isn't going to get him to the top anymore. He's seen this in action, so he wants to know what it is that he cannot actually do. Todoroki is there specifically to learn from the number one, right? And he makes a point to say, like, don't put on the parent act around Deku and Bakugo. Like, I'm only here to use you. I'm only here to learn from the number one hero because my hero was All Might, right? Which is like, oof. And this clearly breaks Endeavor's heart a little bit. It's understandable because it was harsh, but Todoroki also has every right to say that. But you see that all three of these characters have sort of approached this situation with their own goals in mind. And I think Endeavor, ironically enough, as much as I'm sure people would say, like, All Might would have been the best hero to learn from, and I'm sure he would have been a great hero to learn from, but I think at this particular stage in these young heroes' lives, Endeavor is, ironically enough, the one who makes the most sense. He might be the best teacher for them. Not the best teacher ever, not the best hero ever, but definitely the one who makes the most sense to train this particular trio of characters. And I think that's really interesting since we know that Endeavor has always been kind of an asshole. So the idea that he's also the perfect person to teach them right now is really cool and really clever. He even has like some legit advice. As I said, he tells Deku to focus on Air Force. We see him tell Bakugo and Todoroki to do their homework, which their homework is basically going to be focusing on releasing their max output, but fired with precision. For Todoroki, that's learning how to use Flash Fire, which Endeavor already knows how to do. And for Bakugo, that's improving his armor-piercing shot, which we've already seen as well. They have to work on releasing everything all at once, like building it up and storing it inside, making sure they always have that access to that amount of power, to that full concentration, that full blast of everything they have, but making sure that it's precise. Because if Todoroki or Bakugo were to use everything they had all at once, it could hurt the surrounding people. It has to be precise. And I think that that's really cool that he's like, all right, this is what you guys need to do. And he's training them on the spot. Like, we see him talking to Bakugo saying, like, you say that you want to surpass me, but you can't even keep up with me right now. You're strong. You're really good. I can tell you're really good, but you're not able to keep up with me right now. And Bakugo tries to say, like, yeah, in the winter, it takes me a bit more time to warm up. And he's like, no. Because you're going to use that excuse when somebody gets hurt. And as he's saying that, he jumps in front of a truck and stops it from hitting somebody. And he says, like, that's the difference between somebody living and dying. And you can see it's like, dang, like, Endeavor is, again, like I said, he might be a legitimately good teacher for the Musketeers. Like, he is kind of what they need right now. And as I said, his guide to going beyond is just small, steady improvements, which we've seen through his character. That makes sense given who he is and given what he's seen and where we've seen him go. Small, steady improvements make sense for him. And we've seen him even say that something similar to All Might when he was talking about like how he used to watch All Might become number one and how he slowly and steadily tried to improve and he reached number two but could never quite surpass, right? Like, we see him say this. And so to have him reiterate these small steady improvements to Todoroki, Bakugo, and Deku to the Three Musketeers, it makes sense. And I really, really, really appreciated that this week. I think they absolutely nailed the internship so far. And I really, really loved seeing his dynamic with these three heroes. And I'm very excited to see where Endeavor goes as a character. Endeavor is just really interesting. Like, yes, he's a bad dude to an extent, but he's like so fascinating. And watching him try to atone is just always going to be one of the more interesting things about the show. I just think it's fascinating. However, there is one more thing that we got to talk about this week. And that is that they have already talked about this, and the PV shows it. I wouldn't have guessed from the PV, to be fair, but a lot of people online have already talked about this. That next week is technically a filler episode. I'm still going to cover it, because it has Selkie and Sirius, and I love Selkie and Sirius. We haven't seen them in a long time, but I like them quite a bit. So, and they're even going to be teaming up with Froppy again, which is great. Like, I really love that episode. Like, I know it's a filler episode, but I really like it. I thought it was really good. So I'm excited to see Selkie and Sirius again. And also Uraraka and Nejire are going to be there as well. So you have one of the big three there. Uraraka and Froppy are always great together. You have Froppy reuniting with Selkie and Sirius. They're going to have, like, another adventure on the sea. Like, it's going to be really fun. I think this seems like a cool episode. However, people are annoyed. And this time, I kind of get it. I kind of understand. Because it feels like a weird time to add an additional episode when you know that there's stuff that manga fans are really excited about. And even I'm really excited about this whole My Villain Academia, right? Because everybody's been hyping this thing up like it's the best part of My Hero. And even then, people are like, it's the best part so far, and then it continues to improve. So it's like, all right, I want to see where the show's going from here, because I've been really enjoying the show so far. I don't really think the show's had a down season for me. So the idea that this season was supposed to be, oh, this is super hype, this is where the show turns into something crazy, to then be like, yeah, but filler first, is like, oh, because people are already kind of nervous, right? Because you've already rearranged the arcs, right? This was supposed to come after. So now that you've rearranged things, people are already kind of nervous, and then you do a filler on top of that. Now listen, I will never doubt Bones until they give me a reason not to. It's Studio Bones, and they have never really let me down. So, I am going to trust them completely, and I'm already kind of excited for next week's filler arc anyway, because again, I like Selkie and Sirius. However, this time, I get it. In this particular instance, I get it. I still think a lot of manga fans are being a little self-righteous and a little bit complainy, but in this particular case, I get the complaint this time. I understand. I don't agree, but I understand. But I think it's going to be fun, and I will be here to talk about it next week. But with that said, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's video here, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and set notifications to all. Let all of AniTube know that you're here. And of course, before we go, as always, I want to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you'd like to join these beautiful people, there are two ways to do so. The first, for just a single $1, is by hitting that Patreon link in the description. Gets your name scrolling past the screen here, or you can check out that join button right beside the sub button. Almost screwed it up. That gets you a badge next to your name and some emotes to spam in the comments. It is a little bit more, but that's because you get the badge and the emotes and all that fun stuff. So if either one of those sound cool to you, go ahead and hit that join button or check out the Patreon page. Either way, super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron, and that is it for me. So, I have nothing clever to end with, so I'm just going to say bye!